Hi.
Alright, hello guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're brand new here, my name is Nikki and this is my book nook. Y'all, we are doing my September reading wrap up today. I have about 9 books to talk to you about, so I don't want to do a super long rambly intro like I tend to do. So I'm gonna stop myself right here and we're just gonna get right into it. So the first book that I read in the month of September was a little bit of a different one for me. I don't typically read this type of genre. Like I have in the past here and there, but after reading this one, I'm like, am I a thriller girl? Because honestly, I might be. The Sun Down Motel by Simone St. James. This book was wild. It was kind of like a thriller, kind of a mystery. It was really, really cool because it was set in 2 different timelines. One timeline is in 1982 and the other timeline is in present day, which in this book is in 2017. And so basically it follows these 2 girls. The first girl's name is Vivian, and she just is one of those girls. She's like a free spirit. She doesn't really get along with her family. She wants to like go off and do her own thing. So she plans to drive to New York City, but she doesn't make it there. She ends up stopping in this small town called Fell, New York. So she ends up stopping at this motel on the side of the road called the Sun Down Motel, and she just plans to stay there for the night. But it turns out they are actually in need of help. They need a clerk to work the front desk at night during the graveyard shift, and she doesn't really know what she's doing with her life. So she's like, you know what, okay, I'll stay here for a little while, I'll try this out, we'll see what happens. And basically things at this motel very quickly appear to not be normal. Lots of weird things, lots of paranormal-y things, and Vivian has to spend like every night at this motel alone by herself in this really small town on the side of the road. Like so many things start happening, and you can like, we follow her journey of like being in this small town, being in this motel, trying to figure out what's going on here, experiencing all the creepy things that are happening to her. And then from there we are switching to the timeline present day, where we meet Carrie, who is actually Vivian's niece, and her mother has just passed away, and she just kind of like needs a break from life. She's like, you know what, my mother has passed away. There is something that I've always needed answers to. My mom has never given it to me, and now that she's gone and she's the only person I can find out any of this information from, I'm gonna go find it out for myself. So she decides to travel to Fell, New York, because she wants to find out what happened to her Aunt Vivian, because Aunt Vivian one day just up and vanished. Literally nobody knows what happened to her. One night she went in for her shift at the motel and she was never heard from again. And it has always haunted Carrie. She's always wanted to know what happened. So she ends up going to Fell. She goes to visit the Sun Down Motel, and it turns out they're in need of a night clerk, just like Vivian did. So Carrie ends up literally like following in her aunt's footsteps and like being the clerk of this motel, also starting to experience all the weird paranormal things. So it's kind of like a mystery. Like you're seeing Vivian's life in the past and like all the stuff she's experiencing, and then you're seeing Carrie trying to like put the pieces together present day and figure out like what happened to Vivian. Literally I was on the edge of my seat this entire book. Like it's like a mystery, but it's also like totally a thriller. There's paranormal aspects to it. Like this book honestly like scared the crap out of me. At one point I was reading it kind of late at night, and I just got so paranoid. Like it was one of those nights where like I had to like go downstairs in my apartment to get something from the mailroom, and I was like looking over my shoulder. Like it totally creeped me out. The entire time I didn't know what was going on, and then by the end it just like all made sense. It was really, really good. You know, I feel like thrillers are kind of hard to like have a good wrap up to them, like a good ending, but I feel like this book, by the time it ended, I was like very shook. So definitely recommend it. I haven't seen too many people talking about it, so check it out. So next in the month of September, I read The Final Gambit, which is the 3rd and final book in the Inheritance Game series. This series really just like captured my attention last year whenever the 2nd book came out, The Hawthorne Legacy. I really loved the first 2 books. If you don't know what it's about, it's really a lot like the movie Knives Out, kind of meets Gossip Girl is what I like to say. It's about this girl named Avery that finds out that this random billionaire in Texas has passed away and has left the majority of his fortune to her. So part of the stipulation with her getting that fortune is that she has to go and live in this mansion that this man owns for a full year, and in this mansion also lives this man's 4 grandsons. And shortly after she gets it, like the whole family is very confused. They're like, who is this random girl? Why is she getting all this man's money? Like they're very upset, and it's very clear the man is like a trickster. He's always left behind clues and puzzles. Like, it's just the way he is. So it's kind of, again, like a mystery. Like, her and the grandsons are trying to figure out like why she was left this fortune, what her connection is to this man. Lots of twists and turns. There's like a love triangle. It's very much a YA, but it captures your attention. It has like, the chapters are like 3 pages long. It's so easy to read. And I really did love the first 2 books, but the 3rd book, I did a whole reading vlog on it if you're interested, full of spoilers, like full journey in that video if you want to go and watch it. It didn't really do it for me, honestly. Like, this was the finale to this series that I've really been loving, and I just was really disappointed. I don't know, I just felt like I was underwhelmed. I felt like the whole book was focusing on like this new part of the story that I didn't really care about, and then I just felt so unsatisfied by the end. Like, the romance in this story was so minimal. Like, so much of what I loved about the first 2 books was this sort of like love triangle aspect and the back and forth, and that was really just like not a part of this story. And then in the end, there were some characters that I just like really cared about that I don't feel like at all got like the resolution that they deserved, and it like genuinely upset me. So I don't know, I don't want to have like a bad taste in my mouth about this series, but I'm like, I loved these 2 so much, and this one I'm just like, meh, like it just didn't do it for me. But you know, they can't all be winners. But yeah. And then next, I read The American Roommate Experiment by Elena Armas. This is her 2nd novel following up The Spanish Love Deception, and it is also a sort of spin-off of The Spanish Love Deception. Basically, this story follows this girl named Rosie. She has just dramatically changed her life. She has been working at an engineering firm for the past, you know, basically her whole entire adult life. But on the side, she's been writing romance novels and publishing them under a pen name, and her most recent novel really like took off, and she was offered a book deal, and so she basically has decided to like take this plunge, leave her engineering career behind to go and be an author. But she is in this really tough place because now that she has made this plunge, she has writer's block, and she doesn't know how to write. She doesn't know how to write romance. She's just like having a hard time, and on top of that, her ceiling in her apartment has just caved in. So her best friend, Lena, which we know from The Spanish Love Deception, she's out of town right now. She is on her honeymoon. So Rosie's like, okay, I'm just gonna go crash at Lena's. I know where she keeps her spare key. So she goes to stay at Lena's apartment, not realizing that Lena has already promised her apartment to her cousin Lucas, who is coming to New York to visit from Spain. So Rosie finds herself in a predicament when Lucas shows up, and she doesn't have a place to stay, and he's obviously supposed to stay there, and they end up like working out a deal, agreeing to both stay at this apartment temporarily together. And yeah, the 2 kind of like form a friendship, and basically Lucas overhears Rosie talking to Lena, explaining how she has this writer's block, how she doesn't know how to write romance, how she hasn't been on a date in a really long time, and Lucas basically offers to help Rosie like by fake dating her. It's a kind of a fake dating story, but it's a little bit of a different one because it's like they're not fake dating for other people to see. They're just fake dating so that Rosie can like get inspired to write romance, and so that she can be like wooed and believe in love again and all these sort of things. It is very much like a friends to lovers story, and it was very good. It's very different than The Spanish Love Deception, totally different vibe. Totally different tropes. Like, I mean, the fake dating's in there, but again, it's just very different. I have a whole video on this where I'm rambling on and on about it and all my thoughts, so if you want to know more, go and watch that. Overall, I really liked it. Yeah, not disappointed for Elena Armas's 2nd book. Okay, and then next I read what is probably my favorite book I've read all year, maybe one of my favorite books I've ever read. This book kind of sent me into a spiral. Kind of a bad spiral, but also kind of a good spiral, just because it was one of those books that just touched me so deeply, that I so deeply like related to, understood, made me feel seen. Like, it was just one of those books that just like screws with your mind, teaches you about life, teaches you like these lessons that you just need to hear. Carrie, Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I am literally, I listened to this book, I listened to the audiobook, but I already ordered a physical copy because like I need it so bad. I need to reread it. I need to annotate the crap out of it because I just loved it so much. Basically, this story follows this girl named Carrie Soto, and she in this story is the best tennis player that has ever lived. And when we start out the story, we see Carrie, who is now 37. She has been retired for 5 years, and she currently holds the record for the most Grand Slams of anybody in tennis. And when we open up the story, her and her dad are at this tennis match watching this girl, Nikki Chan, in the finals, and basically if she wins this game, she's going to tie Carrie's record for the most Grand Slams. They will each have 20, and that is a record Carrie has held for a long time. Like, it's what she worked her whole life to achieve. And so they're like, okay, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen if she meets your record? Like, how do we feel about this? Like, Carrie's like, it's not gonna happen, it's not gonna happen. It happens, and Nikki ties Carrie's record, and basically right then and there, talking to her dad, who is also her coach, she decides that she's gonna come back out of retirement and that he's going to coach her again, and she's gonna come back, defend her title, win another Grand Slam, and maintain the record as the best tennis player that ever lived. So that's how the book opens up, and then from there, in the most Taylor Jenkins Reid way ever, she jumps around in timelines in just a way that's just so good and so different. We basically jump back to the very beginning, and we see how her father played tennis growing up, and it was something he was really passionate about, but it just wasn't in the cards for him to go on and play and be super great. Like, he had injuries, like there were just a lot of things in the way. He was from Argentina. He ended up coming to America, meeting Carrie's mom. Like, they had her, and literally straight out the womb, he like would always tell Carrie, like, you are going to be the greatest tennis player that ever lived. Like, as soon as she could walk, she was holding a racket. Like, he trained her hours and hours and hours every day, and it was just ingrained in her from a very young age that like she is going to be the best. Like, she has to be the best, and she loved tennis, was so dedicated to it. It was everything to her, and we basically see her entire journey, like growing up, as she starts going into like the junior, you know, tennis championships and all this stuff, and like getting all of her Grand Slams, rising to fame, like everything she goes through with that, and then becoming the best tennis player that ever lives. Like, there's so much involved in it, so many ups and downs. Like, Carrie is such a fascinating character. Like, she is such a dedicated, hard-working person, and obviously, like, in society, being a woman, like, knowing that you're amazing and working super hard, like, she's just been so laser focused that like tennis has been the only thing she's ever seen. She doesn't really have any friends. Like, she's never tried to make friends in the tennis world because like that's not what she's there for. So in a lot of ways, she comes off in the media as a total bitch, which like you could totally think that she's that way. I feel like a lot of people reading the book honestly wouldn't even like her. Like, they probably hate her. I think she's one of those characters you love or you hate. And yeah, so we see like Carrie and how she's basically never allowed herself to have anything, has never cared about anything except tennis and being the best. And like, if she isn't the best, she doesn't know what she is. If she doesn't have tennis, she doesn't know what she has. Like, she feels like she has nothing else. Like, it's just, you just see this like internal battle in her head of like, what happens when I'm not the best? Like, her trying to define what success is. Like, it's a whole freaking journey. But we basically see that. We see her like ending up retiring, and then you see her obviously now coming back and being trained again and trying to get another championship, and like, just, it's so good. I feel like I'm not explaining it well, but just the journey, I don't know. I'm also such a sports person. Like, I get so emotional watching sports regularly. Like, if you're a person where like sports makes you cry, like this book will make you cry. Like, I cried several times reading it, and like by the end it was just one of those books where I was just like, oh my god, like, yes. I don't know, I just really relate to Carrie. I'm like a person that's really, really hard on myself, and like I don't know, I just like want to do something amazing. Like, people that do amazing things inspire me so much, and like people that can be inspirations for others, like, I don't know, that kind of story like always just makes my heart explode, and it just inspires me so much. And I could just relate a lot to Carrie's brain and like the things she goes through and the way she feels, and it just, I don't know, this was a very special book to me. I'm obsessed with it. I'm gonna talk about it probably a lot more this year, and it's probably my favorite book I've read all year. I'm gonna stop now, let's move on. So next, I read Angelika Frankenstein Makes Her Match. This is Sally Thorne's brand new release, her 4th book. If you guys know me at all, Sally Thorne, she wrote The Hating Game, and that is my favorite rom-com ever, just one of my favorite books ever. I love it so much. I have a tattoo for it. Like, it's a problem, it's an obsession. And Sally Thorne is someone that I just like believe in and want to believe in so much, but she hasn't had a great track record since The Hating Game came out. 99% Mine by her was like kind of the worst book I've ever read. Like, she just, I don't know why, she hasn't seemed to find her footing really since The Hating Game. I haven't read her other books, Second First Impressions, but I haven't heard great things about it. So I was really nervous when this came out, but like, I want to give her a chance. Like, I'm gonna read anything she puts out because I just like, she holds a special place in my heart. So this was obviously a very different style of book for her because it's sort of like a modern day retelling of Frankenstein, set back in like the early 1800s. And the idea is if Victor Frankenstein were to have a younger sister who's like super spoiled, and she basically like rewrote the story in that way. And so Angelika Frankenstein has grown up with her brother, Victor Frankenstein. They have been orphans for a long time. They inherited this beautiful mansion. They have like all the money in the world. And Victor is a scientist, and Angelika has always kind of been like his right-hand man, his assistant. And so his latest mission is obviously to build this Frankenstein monster. Like, he wants to bring someone back to life, but he wants to combine different body parts because that's like his next endeavor. And so Angelika, because she has spent her life like doing this scientific work with Victor, and they've been very like secluded in this mansion, like she's 24 and she still hasn't married, which at this time is like, you're like an old lady, you're like way past your date at that point. And yeah, she's just never really attracted a man, and she just so desperately like wants love. She craves it so much. So basically she decides she's going to make her love, make her match with Victor. She goes to the morgue and she basically picks out a man. She falls madly in love with this corpse, and she's like, I'm gonna take his head and I'm gonna combine him. She basically like builds him from like all her favorite body parts in the morgue, brings him to life. And yeah, she expects it to be love at first sight and for him to just like marry her and love her, but like that's not quite how it goes. The man is attracted to Angelika, but like he wakes up and he has no memory and he doesn't know who he is, and he's very confused, and obviously like he is not his own body. Like there's a lot happening here. And even though he's attracted to Angelika, he's like, I need to know who I am. I need to know like where I came from, like where's my family, like I need more information before I can even think about being with you, like help me figure it out. So Angelika very reluctantly is like, okay, I'll help you figure out who you are. But yeah, that's basically the majority of this story. Like Angelika is trying to help this man figure out who he is, but at the same time she's very much in love with him, and he's like attracted to her but like doesn't know. And there's just, I don't know, it's honestly a very like weird, quirky story. But I enjoyed it. Like it was super easy to read, and honestly it was super fun for Halloween. Like it's very much got like those spooky, weird, monster kind of creepy vibes. Like, I mean, it's literally Frankenstein. Like it's so good for this time of year. I wouldn't say this is like one of my favorite books at all, but like for this time of year and like for what it is, I enjoyed it, and I thought she did a good job, and it was a million times better than 99% Mine, so I have hope. I am happy. Yeah, I mean, I thought it was good. If you want like a quirky little rom-com that fits the Halloween season, I'd check it out. Okay, and then in the month of September, I started my reread of the Devil's Night series. This is my favorite series of all time. Like, I already thought that, but in rereading it, like, I've just loved it even more, and I've talked about it ad nauseum on this channel. Like, this series, it just, Penelope Douglas in general, everything to me, but this series was the first of her books that I have read, and it was like a culture shock, a cultural reset for me. Like, I just didn't know books like this existed. And the spice, we all know with Penelope Douglas, like the spice is there, the spice is great, but the story of this, like the plot, just everything involved, like all the characters, like it's just the greatest series. I've talked about it so much, so I don't want to spend too much time on it, but basically this series follows these 4 boys that are from this very rich community, and they are basically like the sons of like the 4 most important men in this community, like the sons of like a senator, like big business moguls. And they, in high school, were on the basketball team together. They were the stars of the basketball team, and they were a part of this group called the 4 Horsemen, where basically they wear these masks, these like skull masks, and they just like wreak havoc on the town, and everybody knows it's them, but because they wear the masks, like nobody can prove it's them, and also nobody wants to like mess with them because their families are so powerful and important. And they do a lot of things all the time, but what they're really known for is Devil's Night. Every year, the night before Halloween, that's when they do the craziest stuff. Like, they pull pranks, they kind of like vandalize things, they throw crazy parties. Like, it's always like a wild time. And basically, one Devil's Night, things do not go the way that they plan, and 3 of the 4 boys end up getting arrested and going to prison for 3 years. And so what this entire series is basically each book in the series follows one of the 4 boys and a different relationship they're having with a girl. Each of the books, you know, flashes from the present to the past. Like, we see them now as adults, like after they've gotten out of prison, and they're basically like back in the town and they want to like seek their revenge on the people that they think landed them in prison, and also like rebuild their lives as these like rich men. It's very, again, kind of like Gossip Girl-esque. Like all these men in a way could be like Chuck Bass, but in like a much darker sort of way. But yeah, it's like they're all dual point of view. They all flash to the past. In all the books, you see that like original Devil's Night. Like, I don't feel like I'm describing this in a good way. Every time I try to talk about this series, I try to explain it quickly, but then I talk about it for like 10 minutes straight because it's hard not to. But just trust me, like the way that the timelines swap, the way that it's dual point of view, like every book, your jaw just like hits the floor 10 times. They are so spicy. And then like as the series builds and you just like learn more and put it all together and the characters build, like, and you flash back to the characters from the other books, like it is just the greatest series in the entire world, like for so many reasons, and I just love it so much. And Corrupt is the first book, and I read that this month. I'm vlogging myself reading it, so if you want to follow on the journey of my reread, that'll be up sometime this month. As soon as I finish the series, I'll put it all together, and then it'll be one big, very long vlog, but I think it'll be a good time. But yeah, I was very happy that I took the time to just reread an old book that I love so much, because I don't know, sometimes you gotta reread stuff, you know? Like you get in a rut of reading new things and you don't really know what you're in the mood for, and you gotta just go back to a tried and true favorite. Okay, and then next I read Her Soul to Take by Harley LaRue. This is, I don't even know. Like this book, it's good, but it's another one of those books where you just kind of have to like take it for what it is. Basically, it follows this girl named Ray that is actually a YouTuber. She's like a paranormal YouTuber, and she pretty much goes back to her family's hometown to go to college, and her friend owns this old bookstore where she like sells used books, and she basically has this book that she comes across that she ends up giving to Ray because it's obviously like a very like creepy, witchy sort of book, and it pretty much turns out to be a grimoire. And essentially Ray like reads through the book and ends up summoning this demon that has been a part of this town's history for a very long time. And obviously he's not a regular demon, he's like a very hot demon. His name is Leon, and basically because she has this grimoire, she has control over him and she can summon him anytime that she wants. And yeah, like there's like all this history with the town. Like her family is like a founding family along with this other family that is there, and like they've all kind of like taken turns controlling Leon, this demon, over the years. And then there's also like a deeper, darker story happening at the same time. It's a very spicy, just very like interesting book. It's not hard to read at all. It's very kind of insta-lovey. That sounds hilarious to say like with a demon, but whatever. It's just a good time. Like if you're looking for a spicy, weird, like Halloween-y, spooky read, this is a good one. So just again, take it for what it is. A demon and a YouTuber, like what has this come to? I don't know, but I enjoyed it. Okay, and then I have a book that I'm like 2/3 of the way through. I'm actually listening to it. It's the Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. I'm not gonna go into my John Green spiel right now because like, again, it'll take like 10 minutes, but John Green is my favorite human in the whole world. He wrote The Fault in Our Stars, obviously, which is my favorite book of all time. Everything that man says, like, I don't think there's another human on this planet that like understands my brain in the way that John Green does. Like just every book he writes, everything he says, I'm just like, yes, yes, yes. Like it just physically hurts my heart how much I adore that man. And so I love his fiction books, but he actually came out with the Anthropocene Reviewed, which is a nonfiction book. And it's just so freaking good. I'm actually like listening to the audiobook where he's narrating it. And basically the title of it, if you're confused, the Anthropocene is basically this period of time that we're in where humans have existed on this earth. So the Anthropocene is pretty much just like life, like the human world. And the reason it's called the Anthropocene Reviewed is this book is pretty much like a collection of essays. So the book opens up where John explains that back when he was younger, like one of his first jobs was that he was a book reviewer. And back in the day, like before the time of Amazon, people actually wrote reviews. Like we didn't go by this 5-star rating, like you actually had to like write out your thoughts on something, and then somebody like gleaned how you felt about it from what you wrote about it. It wasn't just based off this like 5-star system that has now come about where you're supposed to like understand the way someone fully felt about something just by looking at the amount of stars they gave it. Anyways, he like goes into that whole spiel. That alone, I was like, wow, like it just, everything he says, he just blows my mind. I don't know, but that's like the opening of the book. And then from there, it's like him talking about just all these like aspects of life and just random things and like the history behind them, and then how they've like related to his life and like the impact they've had. And then at the end, he like, of each little chapter, he gives like a star rating of a thing. And so I feel like I'm making this sound really boring, but it's like, it's not. Like, he talks about so many interesting things. I mean, he talks about like the internet, but then he talks about like velociraptors. My favorite chapter was, he talked about Diet Dr. Pepper. It literally made me cry. Like, Diet Dr. Pepper is my favorite soda. It's John Green's favorite soda. And he just talked about like so in depth, like the history of it and like how it came about and how like it tastes like nothing, but also everything. And what's so great about it is that it feels like a sin when you're drinking it, but like it's not, because it's sugar-free. Like, I'm not gonna do this justice, but I just promise you, like, I'm only 2/3 of the way through, but it's just been such a great book because like each chapter is about like 15 minutes and I can just listen to it and I can listen to him talk, and it's like, I just feel like I'm learning so much. Like, this man just has so much knowledge. Like, he's just so intelligent. But also something that I'm learning from this book too is, even though he is talking about like things in life and just random stuff, like we're learning a lot about John as well. And I mean, we learned that he was like a horrible student growing up, and he went through really tough periods of his life where he was in like daily therapy and had to like leave a job, and like, I don't know, like he's just one of my greatest idols. So like getting to learn more about him and just seeing that he was not always like the smartest person in the world and didn't always just achieve everything right away, and it took him a long time to get to where he is, like that just, it inspires me. He always inspires me. I'm loving it. If you want to educate yourself, if you want to learn some fun random facts about a lot of things, this has been a great book. And then lastly, I had to DNF this book, and it hurts my heart because I want to read every book by Mariana Zapata, but like, I have to draw the line somewhere. I tried to read Lingus, which I think this is actually her first book, or it's one of her very first books. It's been on my shelf for a while, so I'm like, let me give it a try. Basically, I don't even know what this girl's name is because I feel like I tried to block it out. Her name is Kat. So basically it follows this girl named Kat, and the story opens up with her and her friend going to a porn convention because her and her friend really like porn, and they're like, let's go to this convention. Like, they are regular watchers and consumers of porn and something they like talk about. So they decided to go to this convention together. But even though Kat is like into porn, she's like trying to act like she doesn't want to go to this convention. And so like literally the first 100-something pages are them there, and she ends up like meeting this guy there at the convention. They have like a not very cute meet cute, and then she keeps running into him, and I don't know, like she kind of likes him, she's kind of cute, and then oh my god, shocking revelation, turns out he's a porn star. Which I didn't even mention this, she's there with a couple of her friends, and one of her best friends actually is a porn star herself, and that's like one of the reasons they're at this convention. So she's all like obsessed with this guy, thinks she might like him, but then she like finds out he's a porn star, and then she instantly is like, it's just literally, I can't even talk about this book because it's just so absurd. They end up like being friends and staying friends outside of this, and she definitely has a crush on him, but she just is like, I can't date him, he's a porn star, like blah 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 blah. Like, it doesn't make literally any sense because she literally goes to a porn convention because she likes porn, but then she like meets a man and likes him, and then she like spends the rest of the book like judging the shit out of him because he's a porn star. And like, I get it, like I could understand how that could make like an interesting dynamic, an interesting book. Like, I understand like how difficult it could be to date someone whose like entire job is like sleeping with other people. Like, I get it, but it's just like this girl's like internal thoughts are just so nasty, and they're just so contradictory because I'm like, you're literally at this convention because you like this stuff, and you're like shocked that you meet a man there and like his job is participating in this, and then you literally like everything about him. And also, he's not even like what I would say your typical porn star is, right? He's like a lawyer, like he has like a legit job and like has like a bunch of, not a bunch of money, but like, you know, he's a very like established normal person, but he just like does this on the side. Like, he's like the least wild porn star you could ever imagine. But she just like says, like, her internal monologue about him is just so vile. Like, it's just so like slut shamey and like nasty, and it also doesn't make any sense to me because like one of her absolute best friends is also a porn star. So I'm like, what is happening here? Also, like, I don't know. I think about Mariana Zapata, I love her as an author, but something that she does that I don't love is she's really obsessed with like poop and fart humor. Like, I don't know why every single one of her books has to mention like poop or fart or diarrhea. Like, and like, I just don't want to think about that when I'm reading a romance book. And in this book, it was just off the rails. Like, I swear to God, you couldn't read 2 pages without her saying the word like poop or fart. And like, it just, I don't know what it is. I couldn't do it. And also like the friend group, the main character of this book was just so unlikable that it was like painful to read. And then also their entire friend group, they were just all so mean to each other, like genuinely rude, like not nice. Like, I'm like, why are any of y'all friends with each other? I really tried. Like, I read like 2/3 of it because I wanted to finish it because I want to read every Mariana Zapata book, but like I couldn't. Like, this book was literally peace and love, so awful. So yeah, I just had to mention it because I read most of it, and it's like, you know, I'm a Mariana Zapata queen, but like not this one for me. But yeah, guys, those are all the books I read in the month of September. It was a pretty stacked month. Read some really great things, read some not so great things, but that's how the cookie crumbles, I guess. Why did I just say that? Yeah, guys, anyways, if you read any of these books, I would love to hear all your thoughts down below. If you read something else this month that you absolutely loved, I would also love to hear that down below. Just tell me all the things. But yeah, guys, I love you so much. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you very soon. Bye.